All right, today we're tackling the big one, the capstone of the MBA, the final boss, if you will, the strategic consulting project. This is where all the theory, all the case studies, all the late-night study sessions, well, this is where it all gets put to the test in the real world. So, let's get into it.
You know, this quote from Peter Block really hits the nail on the head. This project, at its heart, isn't just about finding some magic answer. It's about taking a really complex, messy situation and creating a clear, understandable picture for the client. That clarity, that's where the real value is.
So what really makes this the ultimate challenge of the entire MBA program? Let's break it down.
Yeah, this is absolutely not your typical classroom assignment. We are talking about a genuine, high-stakes project where student teams get dropped into a real company to solve a real business problem. Everything you've learned, from finance and marketing to strategy and operations, it all has to come together right here.
Every consulting project kind of follows a story arc, and the first chapter is always about understanding what's happening right now. This is what consultants call the as-is state. It's a deep, honest dive into the current reality, warts and all.
So, how do you even start? When you're faced with a big, messy, open-ended problem, where's the starting line? Especially when you can't even see the finish line yet.
Well, it all starts by putting a frame around the problem. You got to define the scope so you know what you're actually solving. You need to understand who asked for this project, and more importantly, why they asked for it. Then you have to dig into all the initial assumptions to see what holds up, and finally, figure out the best way to get the data you need. Getting this foundation right is, well, it's everything. And to do all that, you need this core skill called integrative problem solving. This is all about breaking out of those silos, Not just thinking about finance or just about marketing. It's about seeing the whole system, how all the different pieces of the business connect, and often, how they combine to create the very problem you're there to fix.
Okay, so once you have that crystal clear picture of the as-is state, it's time to start building the future. This is the really creative, strategic part of the whole thing, defining that to-be state.
And to build that future, you pull from your entire MBA toolkit. This isn't about just grabbing one framework off the shelf. It's about being strategic. Maybe you use Porter's 5 forces to map out the competition, then you apply lean startup ideas to test out a solution, all while making sure the numbers work with some serious financial analysis. You use the right tool for the right job.
And this slide right here, this is the whole game. The consultant's job is to build a solid bridge from the as-is to the to-be. You have to clearly show the client. Here is where you are now, backed by data. And here is the amazing place you could be. And most importantly, here are the exact steps to get there.
A brilliant strategy that just sits in a binder on a shelf is pretty much useless, right? The final hurdle, and maybe the hardest one, is delivering your recommendations in a way that actually inspires people to take action.
And you can see just how important that is when you look at how the project is graded. A whopping 40% of the entire grade comes from that final group presentation to the client. That tells you everything. Your analysis can be perfect, but if you can't communicate it persuasively, it doesn't matter.
And check this out. These aren't small-time clients. We're talking about major players like Virgin Media, the energy giant SSE, even the Rajasthan Royals cricket team. Students are getting their hands dirty tackling big, complex challenges for these organizations, which is just an incredible experience.
So, after going through this intense, immersive project, what are the skills that really stick with you? The ones that define your career? Let's boil it down to 5 essential takeaways.
All right, coming in at number 1.
You basically learn to think like a CEO. You're forced to stop thinking in terms of just one department. You start connecting the dots, seeing how a decision in marketing is going to ripple through finance, or how a change in operations will impact the customer. That big picture view, that's what leadership is all about.
Okay, takeaway number 2. This one is huge.
Anybody can pull numbers, but data is just noise until you turn it into insight. This project drills into you how to synthesize all that information, the numbers, the interviews, the research, and weave it into a compelling story that points to a clear recommendation. It's about getting to the so what, the thing that actually makes someone decide to do something. Moving on to our third big takeaway. This is about your toolkit. In the real world, problems are messy. They don't come in neat packages, so you learn not just what the frameworks are, but which one to use and when. More importantly, you learn how to adapt them to bring some structure and logic to a really ambiguous, chaotic situation.
All right, number 4. And honestly, this one might be the key to making a real impact.
Look, you can have the most brilliant, game-changing idea in the world. But if you can't get other people on board, if you can't get buy-in from the decision makers, that idea is going nowhere. This project is a masterclass in how to stand up and present complex ideas with clarity, with competence, and with a whole lot of persuasive power.
And finally, all of this builds up to the 5th, and I think most transformative skill of all. When you put all these pieces together, what you're really developing is true strategic thinking. It's that ability to rise above the day-to-day fires, see the entire competitive landscape, anticipate what's coming around the corner, and chart a winning course for the long term. So in the end, this project gives you an entire toolkit for tackling complexity and driving real change. It really leaves you with one final, powerful question, and I'll leave it with you too. Now that you have the toolkit, what problem are you going to solve?